You are watching or listening to Jade Emerald Green. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and follow so that you are staying connected with the daily content arrivals that are made just for you. Thank you. Good morning. Today is Sunday, July 13th, 2025, and this is your weekly collective tarot and oracle reading on Jade Emerald Green. Okay, so we have a jam-packed week ahead of us with two major retrogrades. Right here, right now, is the Saturn Retrograde. This is where we're being called to reassess our responsibilities from now through, I've seen November 7th as a date roughly, November 12th, even as far as November 27th, as to when this retrograde is finally supposed to end and, station direct in the sign of Aries. That's why we are reassessing what our responsibilities are to ourselves, to others, to the greater world around us. As well as this week, come Friday, we will have good old Mercury retrograde in the sign of Leo. That's why this Leo season of Mercury is happening for such an extended period of time. I think from like the end of June through September 2nd, we are encountering all of our communications being bigger and bolder and, having this aura of ego that we have to be mindful of so that we are getting our intended message across. We don't want to go for scorched earth like our fire sign Leo can do at times. We want to be able to, at more times than most, use discernment in the ways in which we're communicating and making sure how we communicate and what our actual needs are matching up. So those are two big things to be mindful of. And of course, with Mercury retrograde, to prepare ahead of it. Back up all your shit, please. I don't want to hear nobody saying that they didn't back up their shit, that they didn't have things, in order. Make sure you have more cash on hand so that if any sort of, electronic systems go down, that you're still able to get the things that you need. What else? Transportation. Look, give yourself more time to get to the places where you need to motherfucking go. Like, all of this needs to be important. And, of course, Mercury rules communication as well. So when you have Mercury in Leo and then Mercury retrograde, you definitely want to make sure that you are only saying what you mean and mean what you say. Be mindful of the timing in which this is happening as well. Some things like new negotiations, new contracts, they kind of need some more time in the oven during the Mercury retrograde. And based off of this being retrograde in Leo, this is going to apply to our fixed signs more than anything. So our Tauruses, our Leos, our Scorpios, and our Aquariuses. So if you are part of the fixed gang, be on the lookout. Alrighty, so with that being said, we have our weekly download here where we're going to go over our pulls for today using our situation, action, outcome format that is expanded and stylized, aka our number one question that we always ask is, what the fuck are we doing here? And I have to ask that more than normal this time around, considering the retrogrades. Like, we really need to know what the fuck we're doing here. Like, it's not just me like bullshitting around. So without further ado, I'm going to turn these cards over. Interesting. All right. So I'm pulling over the tarot reads for today, as well as our oracle pulls. So for those, if this is your first time on my channel, definitely want to clarify here that I use like about 9 decks now, actually, with the addition of the African Goddess Rising Oracle. So everything's really in depth here. Alright. So alright. Nice. Okay. So let's just get right into it, alright? This is our in-depth dive, so we're gonna be taking our time anyway, but starting off with our old-time question. What the fuck are we doing here? We have the Hangman in reverse. Now, I'm going to read this as reverse, as opposed to merely just a shadow side. Now, the Hangman is not hanging. It seems like he's climbing. It seems like he's doing the most. It seems like he's doing anything except what the fuck he's supposed to do. Now, when you receive the Hangman, usually upright, right? You know, you're encountering a situation where you are either being asked to sit this one out or you're being forced to sit this one out. Your resistance is what creates the Hangman in reverse. When you want to perhaps overexert yourself, and you may have great reasons for, you know, wanting to exert yourself, going the extra mile, but sometimes less really is more. Okay? Okay, so if anyone on social media watches Tony Stavacci, I hope I'm pronouncing his last name right. He's like a social media comedian, right? He has this one sketch where he's talking about a foreign exchange student learning American games, and the foreign exchange student is in the classroom, right? And they're playing Hangman, and he's like, okay, what's that concept of Hangman? And the teacher's basically explaining, like, okay, you gotta guess a letter correctly. If you guess a letter incorrectly, then, you know, you're one step closer to, like, killing this man. and it highlights the absurdity of playing Hangman, right? And you just don't want to, you know, get in that point where you are the one that ends up being hung, is what I'm essentially getting at. So why is it important to guess the right letter, so to speak, and that being an analogy for utilizing discernment as to when to step forward and when to step back? Well, it's because we don't want to be the one that's actually hanged, okay? Nobody really likes a lynching except for white people who lynched black people back in the days. And even today, lynching never really ended. Collective. Let's be mindful of that. But, in any case, the Hangman in reverse is our situation today. And it's something to be mindful of because a lot's going on. We have Saturn Retrograde and we have Mercury coming. And we're in the shadow period for Mercury Retrograde anyway. So things that we want to be starting, things that we want to, you know, put our energy toward, it's kind of like, you know, despite our deepest wishes, we're calling to take a step back and reflect. Well, why is that? What the fuck are we supposed to do about it? We have the world, okay? And when it comes to reassessing, we got to think of this macro. We can't be thinking micro. We can't just be thinking about ourselves and the people we usually think about, our usual suspects. We have to think about way more than that. We have to consider what does the world need right now and how can my actions actually help contribute to the betterment of the world. So if we're also in situations where we need to understand that we're deserving of the world, and maybe we may be acting in very like when we deserve the world, we are still acting like we could only get this tiny bit and that's all that we deserve. Like, we have to be aware of our worthiness. And sometimes we overexert ourselves because we're either people pleasing or we're just not in a state to really like step back, because sometimes our presence can make people grow arrogant. Our absence is what really allows people to grow, you know? So our hangman in reverse is like when we're kind of like we're doing stepping up a lot, but we're not stepping back a lot. So step back and instead utilize that time to reflect with discernment as to like, okay, what's our greater mission in life? What is our mission that is going to be impactful toward the world? We need to be thinking worldly. We live in a global society. Regardless of how many people that are in power try to remove us from that and isolate us from that, we are all interconnected. We've never not actually been interconnected. It's just the way that society and technology had been up until like this point, and you know, I'm talking about relatively recently, over the past 50 years and less, like where it's been easier to see our global connectivity through the technology in which we have. But now it's just time to assess, like, okay, what impact do I really want to have on the world? Because I am of the world. And it's important that we determine that as what the fuck we're going to do about what the fuck we're doing here. You know, like what I'm saying is that's our reason based off of our situation. That's our recommended action. Think of the world. Because if we get into our fuckery mode, where's the fuckery lies in the 10 of Swords this week, which means that if we don't think about the greater world around us and we're just stuck in the micro, it can be easy for us to, you know, kind of be through with ourselves or through with people in our life that may actually be like, you know, providing or contributing something that's worthwhile to our lives. Just because we're going through the motions, we become over it. And 10 is the number of completion or the end of a cycle, both within ourselves and within the collective. So we don't just want to throw everything away just yet. We are due for a shift in our perspective. Our mental capacity has to change. Our strategy for our mind has to change. All of this has to transform as opposed to just being done as we are. So let the 10 of Swords advise you of where the fuckery is this week. Don't just throw everything away based off of how you've been thinking. Sometimes it's us that needs to change our way of thinking in order to affect the type of results that we need to really impact the world. So actually, I'm bringing this back because what happens when we do what the fuck we're supposed to do? We see a new future ahead of us in the 3 of Wands. So even though this is in the Pulp Tarot iteration, it's looking towards the right, which is symbolizing looking toward the future. In the traditional RWS Rider-Waite-Smith, you see the back of this person's head looking toward the future, seemingly, or looking over the horizon, so to speak. So it seems like they're present, but they're looking ahead. Whereas this one is just straight up like, okay, we're looking toward the future. So our possibilities are endless, is what I'm trying to say. When we take the world into consideration, there's a big wide world out there. There's billions of people. There's lots of us and lots of ways that something can get done, lots of ways that our goals can be achieved, but we need to utilize this retrograde period as a moment of reflection in order to assess what and how those things can happen. So what happens when we do what the fuck we're supposed to do? We have a future! Hey, greatest love of all. I don't want to sing Whitney, you know, let her sing it, but alrighty. So What happens when we're stuck in the fuckery? What the fuckery is in the Four of Wands. So when we engage in action that's not recommended and we just kind of, say, fuck it, I'm over it, we don't actually see the change that we need to see. And so we get stuck in the old cycles with the same old people, same old party. I'm definitely catching the shadow side of this Four of Wands. The castle is stagnant, so to speak. We're dealing with the same toxic ass people, toxic ass friends group that it actually ends up being the end of us if we think about it. Expand your world. Your life may very well depend upon it. It's very much a matter of life or death these days to acknowledge where your perspective is on life, because your perspective informs your thoughts, it informs your behaviors and actions, your feelings. So I know everything in this Four of Wands may seem like a party, it may look like a party, it may look like a celebration. Is this celebration happening for you or is it happening to you? Is it a fruitful celebration or a troubled celebration? Like, what are you celebrating ultimately depends. Your answer depends on what you're actually celebrating is what I'm trying to say. So, don't just say you're over it, but without affecting any sort of change. Take the time to allow the Hangman to show you a clear view of what you need to see about your world, so that this troubled celebration can actually be a celebration that is for you, so we can turn things around. Okay? Because ultimately, what is this about? We have a clarifier, as always. And this week, our clarifier is the King of Pentacles. See, the reason why the King of Pentacles has the world before him is because if we think about our higher octane pentacles from 8 on up to the King, after 7, after understanding our purpose and value, where you're reflecting upon, material, tangible goals, your assets, your money, your material, tangible goals. From 8 on up, we start putting in the hard work. 8 of Pentacles is you better work, bitch. Right? 9 is the fulfillment within self of our external world. 10 is about legacy. Page is about the goals going up from there. The Knight of Pentacles is about setting good foundational roots based off of that hard work. It's like moving from, just earning disposable income to having passive income, if we're looking at it from, quite frankly, a capitalistic set of mind. Queen of Pentacles is reaping the rewards, and the King is the boss daddy. The reason why, and I'm not bootstrapping this by any means, because if we really know the state of the world today, we often know that, we talked about people who are hoarders, hoarding the wealth. But I'll say this more of a tangible goal perspective, or, anything that's outside of ourselves that's tangible. It's important that we understand that our mind informs, our reality. So the reason why the King of Pentacles can have the world before him is because of lived experience. So in order to have that lived experience, we have to expand what we know. And sometimes observation can do a lot for us, with the Hangman. Alrighty. So that is our tarot reading for the week. We're going to get into our day-by-day forecast a little later after we do these oracle readings. Yay. All right, starting with the Prism Oracle, we have rest and caution. So that, I feel like, is really on par here with the Hangman in reverse. This is just telling us, yo, less is more. Less is more. Do more observing. Don't overexert yourself. Don't resist hanging out for a little bit. You get what I'm saying? That's really all I have to say about that. Rest and exercise caution. Now, in comes in Lucille Ball for the week. On a bad day, work is the best medicine. And this is what I'm doing right now. I don't feel like I'm overexerting myself because this is something I've expected to do and something I enjoy doing. But also, I want to be sure that, you know, I'm giving simple explanations. I'm not getting super convoluted. I'm getting better at that. So, you know, Lucille Ball, OG of I Love Lucy, made that shit run. Great series, even if you watch it today, even in black and white, even if they have it in Technicolor, blah, 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 blah. Lucille Ball was nothing to be played with. You know, someone who is dedicated, ultimately, even if you have a moment where you need to reflect more than exert, that's still work. Observation is work. Some people don't have the skill set of observation quite down. But now's a good time to fucking practice. Now's a good time to work on that. So that you can be the hard worker that you want to be. Alrighty, so I'm going to go into both our What's the Tea Oracle as well as our Broken Mirrors Oracle. So What's the Tea? We have threatening, intimidating, threatened, bothered. Don't let these B's and H's threaten you. Okay? Don't let them do it. Because if you let them try to sway you or try to silence you, then they'll run over you with anything and everything. Okay? Like, stand up for yourself. Also, know what standing up is for. You know, like, can you stand up without saying anything? Yeah, actually. Sometimes you just need to simply observe. Like, observe. If you have an op, observe your op. That's the best way. The more you observe your op, the more you can understand where they're coming from and how to effectively deal with an op crisis, so to speak, you know. So I know the imagery on here is literally threatening, but be the David in the story of Goliath. I know we talked about that in yesterday's reading for Saturday with the Seven of Wands. Like, anything can appear overwhelming, but that's why you observe, so you have full understanding of what's before you, and things that might be otherwise really threatening may not have the same power over you as it would have had otherwise. In order to keep that power for yourself, you have to be determined. Okay? So, persistent, still holding on, flowers and gifts, you know, like, determination. You could always redetermine. That's the beauty about determination, is that even if you determine something and if you don't necessarily meet your goal, you could always redetermine. You don't have to wait for a solar or lunar cycle phase to like come around. You can always redetermine. And I like how in this one it shows like there's commitment, you know. It does take commitment to be determined though. That is real. Moving on to our Dark Confessions Oracle. Oh, for the week, I cannot support your actions. It's too much for me to deal with. So, if keyword I think out of this one is too much. If something is either too much for you to deal with out of somebody else, or if something you're doing is too much for somebody else to deal with, you know, it goes back to that Hangman. Observe. Observe why that is for you or for them. And then adjust accordingly. Like, I don't necessarily get the most fatalistic sense out of this, even though we're dealing with people or entities or situations that perhaps could be threatening. But, you know, like, once you get to the root of a situation, then you're better able to assess, okay, what is it that I'm doing too much of? What am I not doing enough of? So everything is in balance, you know? And even if other people can't deal with you, you still got to deal with yourself. You still got to be your own best friend. So know your boundaries better. Know your sense of responsibilities better. I think this is what the Saturn retrograde is calling for anyway. Alrighty, so for our angelic connections, we have the blue sky card. You may find yourself inspired to look up at the clouds overhead. There it is, an angel in all its glory watching over you. So please always know that there are spirits and angels, forces in the world that are looking over you and make sure you complete your motherfucking mission, okay? I gained another angel today, and hopefully I'll be able to talk about that more in the week and in a way that's powerful but still personal and respectful to the situation as it comes about. Alrighty, so moving on into the African goddess rising. Okay, so we have Yasiji, live out loud. Now, even in the midst of us being called to reflect more than we project, it's still important that we live our life in amongst this Saturn and Mercury retrograde period. Life doesn't stop lifing, so we're still going to have the moments where we are called to live out loud, okay? Now, with that being said, living out loud is not the same as living obnoxiously. Living out loud is not the same as live, laugh, love. You know, you heard me? So, live in a way that's most authentic to you while maintaining the balance of things that are needed in your life, okay? Keep trying to have this focus, but it's a little bit hard right now. So, with that being said here, we have our final oracle, which is the timing oracle here, before we pull out our daily cards for the week. So, I guess as we are dealing with this retrograde period, what am I curious about? Yes. Okay. So, pulling from our Broken Mirrors pool and our what happens when we do what the fuck we're supposed to do. You know, based off of being determined to see a brighter future. When will we see the bridge appear between our actions toward our determination and the future that it brings us to? So, when will we see the bridge appear is the question. The bridge of what? The bridge between our determination and our future, okay? The bridge. I'm not saying we're at the destination yet. I'm just saying when will we see the bridge appear? Alright? So, one and one more. Alright. When will we see the bridge appear? And I'm dropping cards. Alright. Tight. Alright. And then when will we see the bridge appear? Okay. Given that this is a Saturn retrograde, Saturn Aries, timing is much further in the future. Now, it doesn't give us a more specific timeline. Let me see if it does. Okay, next spring. Okay, so we got a couple things sprouting for us in next spring. This has come about a few times here. So, nothing immediate, but something that will present itself in the coming months later that will show us that the bridge is good to cross over. Okay? I feel that. I heard it. I seen it. Alrighty, so finally, we're going to pull out our cards for this week. Starting with today, Sunday, July 13th. King of Cups, our emotional boss daddy. Alright? That's what we're starting off. We're called to master our motherfucking emotions, especially at this time of the retrograde. It can be easy to feel that we're being picked on and the why me and all of that, but we're being called to express our royalty in our emotional world. So that's Sunday. Monday, July 14th, we have the Page of Cups. So what are our emotional goals? Meaning, like, how are we getting our emotional world in order so that we can keep up with that King of Cups energy, huh? Tuesday, July 15th. Okay, we got the Magician. Okay, girl, I see you, girl. And we have to know that everything is within us forever and ever and ever. Each lifetime that we come across, we find a new way to make this magic work. Wednesday, July 16th. We gotta make the magic work in order to go through this cycle of life and to experience rebirth. How we were is not how we are going to be. Hey, 9 of Wands here for Thursday. Have we gone through a hard-fought battle lately? Are we on the other side wondering what have we gained from it? That's our Thursday. Enough said. And we got the 6 of Pentacles for Friday, so we are in the mode of giving and receiving. Now, whether we're on one side of the scale or the other, make sure you show appreciation for either being able to offer or being in the position of being able to receive. And finally, Saturday, July 19th, we have the Queen of Wands. Okay? Now, Queen of Wands, that means we are embodying our passion, our creative ideas, our ability to execute said passions and creative ideas in a way that is matched by no one. Okay? All right. So, with that being said, got this done in under 35 minutes, which is fucking amazing. So, I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you for watching the in-depth weekly collective tarot oracle reading on Jade Emerald Green. I appreciate each and every one of you that views this, that likes this, that follows me, and that subscribes to the channel based off of this reading. And yeah, just check out daily content during the week. We're gonna get a little bit more in depth with these readings, these tarot pulls, and then hone in along with the African Goddess Rising Oracle. Is there anything else? Oh, yes. So, 2 cards I wanted to connect with the Saturn Retrograde based off of our July 2025 monthly horoscope forecast. If you read the Substack, are Temperance and the Knight of Cups. So, for this, it's everything in moderation. That is the key word. Like, yes, we're reflecting on our responsibilities. You know, often Saturn in Aries is regarded Saturn in its fall. But we can make anything work with a little judging, okay? But it is all about moderation and hard work. So there's that aspect. And yeah, just be mindful of the retrograde. Like, be really kind to yourself and to other people during this time. I know it may be easy to want to pop off and things like that, but don't do it. Think about it first, okay? All right, ciao, ciao.